What's going on there, guys? We back with another one. Want to talk about Gillie the Kid and Stephen A. Smith's response to the NFL draft. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders, what was going on with him was almost as big, if not bigger, than the draft itself. And he landed with the Cleveland Browns, pick 144 in the fifth round. And although there's four of the QBs on the roster, you look at the age of Flacco. Look at the guy they drafted last year. Um, you also look at Deshaun Watson bouncing back, from that Achilles injury. You say maybe, somewhere in the future, Shedeur could potentially win that job if he go out there and perform and prove all the naysayers wrong. It's still reports coming out about things that were happening behind the scenes with him. You keep hearing character issues, character issues, character issues. And I'll say this before we get into these videos. With Shedeur knowing this, with him having knowledge that this is the perception of him, he could be himself, but he needs to walk a fine line, to kind of dispel any of those rumors. Because, and the reason I say that, you want to be yourself, but they're fishing. So you don't want to give them anything um, that can be used against you. And you got to even watch the people that come around you. I feel like he might have some plants, come around him just to get information and different things like that. So Shador, don't overindulge in conversation and none of that with anybody. I'm sure Prime's told you this, but um, you seem like a prime target for certain things. Now, I look at John Elway, the way he came in the league, the way his dad controlled that situation. Also, I look at Eli Manning, the way his dad controlled that situation. And it's kind of only Shador that's getting talked about like that, with his dad and that being such a negative thing. You won't allow him to go play for certain cities. But here we are, right? Let's get into what Gillie had to say, and we're going to get into what Stephen A. had to say. Let's.
To all my folks out there, right? I just want y'all to know that when you're a black man in America, right, sometimes you get reminders. You know what I mean? As a successful black man in America, I often get reminders. And in the Shedeur Sanders situation, this is just a reminder that you can do everything right in life. You can come from a good family. You could be a good student. You could be a God-fearing kid. You could be a hard worker. You could beat the odds. Your dad could be a Hall of Fame player and you can beat the odds because not too many Hall of Fame players have good kids. So you can beat the odds. You can beat, he ain't his daddy. You can beat all of that growing up. But you still get a reminder that you just a nigga, man. That's it. You just a nigga. We sitting here looking at a public execution going on right in front of our eyes. Where it's like, we just got to remind you that you just a nigga. There's no other way to look at it. There's a lot of black analysts on TV, but they got to keep it corporate. They can't say what it is. They got to keep it corporate. I just think this is unbelievable. It's just, no, sometimes as a black man in America, you get reminded that you just a nigga. Don't matter how much work you put in. Don't matter. None of that don't matter. You got to understand. I arrived at a hotel in Boston, right? And I get to the front desk and I say, is there any way I could get a suite? And this lady look at me and she say, I'm sorry. She didn't press one button. She says, I'm sorry, it's no suites in the building. They're all sold out. As she's saying it, a white man is walking out the back. As she said, Gillie, oh man, I love you. Man, I love what you do for the community, man. You're a great guy. She hand me my room key. I get up to my floor. When the elevator opened, the white guy's on my floor. And he says, Gillie, I don't know why she told you there's no suites available. Every suite in the building is open, Gillie. Come back downstairs, man. We're going to put you in a suite. But it was just a reminder that You just a nigga. That lady looked at me and said, there's no sweets. Before I make this hotel thousands of dollars, I would rather your black ass not be in the suite. So in life, you get reminded sometimes that you just a nigga. No matter how much work you put in, how much good you do, no, you just a nigga.
Shedeur Sanders is not blameless here. Primetime Deion Sanders is not blameless here. I'm going to say what I have to say, knowing that both of them have their hands at least a little bit dirty in all of this. But if you're the National Football League, clearly it's not about talent anymore. It's about something else. And I'm going to tell you, I spent a large amount of the last 24 hours thinking about nothing more than I was thinking about collusion. Because how in the hell does 32 teams in the National Football League pass on a quarterback that was universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country entering this draft, and 32 teams passed on him? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times they passed on him. How the hell does that happen? 4 rounds. It doesn't happen to a quarterback. We've never seen anything like this before. We've seen guys drop because of injuries. We've seen guys drop because of off-field issues, but we've never seen a quarterback projected to be a top 20 pick, universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, projected to be a first rounder, in all likelihood a safe bet of a late first rounder, and drop literally to the 5th round. We haven't seen anything like that. And when you're talking about the owners, I'm going to keep in mind, and I tweeted about this, seems very Kaepernick-like, as in Colin Kaepernick.
Well, I will say this. I don't think you can compare it to Kaepernick because he did get drafted. But I do see what you're saying. You know, there was definitely collusion. There was definitely some solidarity amongst owners, amongst personnel around the league that we were going to teach the Sanders family a lesson. I don't think that is even a question. We watched it play out in real time. If I'm Shador, you know, in some ways, right, he won't have all that pressure on him to come out day one and be the guy. The narrative kind of changes with him falling to the 5th round and being behind Deshaun Watson and maybe even Flacco at first on the depth chart. The pressure mounts like, when does he get an opportunity? You're gonna hear that with the Browns. We want Shador. If it's going bad, we want Shador. We want Shador. He's kind of, instead of potentially being looked at like a villain, and you know, they talk about him holding up the watches and some of the things, in some people's mind they would have perceived him that way. Now it's going to be like, we rooting for this dude. We can't wait for him to go out there and show the haters. You know, this is what they say. That's what the kids say. Now show all the haters uh, that they were wrong for passing him up. And in that regard, I think it could be a blessing in disguise. You don't have all the pressures to go out there and perform like a top 3 pick. Say if he went to the Giants, you know, immediately you're expected to start. You know, if not week 1, you know, by week 3 or 4, like with certain teams, you know, so they would be expecting him to start right away. Philly, I mean, not Philly, Pittsburgh, you know, in a situation, they would have still expected you to come out and be ready, because Jackson Dart probably is going to be the guy at quarterback this year. So, yeah, I think in some ways, when I look back at this thing, it's he got his wake up call early. You know, sometimes people can, I don't want to say compartmentalize. That's not the word. People can get a clearer picture, basically, of what the league's gonna be like. Everybody gets a humbling moment, and I ain't even talking about someone they talking about have character issues. I mean, just that level, the lifestyle, and all that. His was on draft day, so he should have laser focus on keeping the main thing the main thing, and being as good as he know he can be. Forget proving the haters wrong. Prove yourself right. That's always the way to go about it. And you don't have to rush it. I really like this for him. I think when I look back at it, I think he's going to be ready to perform when his numbers call. As far as what Gillie said, people going to say Cam Ward went number one, so you can't say that. Uh, as far as Gillie's points, like I said, John Elway, Eli Manning's father said the same thing that Prime said, but for some reason it's looked at negative when Prime said it. Um, but they're saying it's not just that; they saying it's the interviews and everything else. You have all this stuff readily available online. Um, it was clear that Shedeur would be a target for the media. I saw what the personnel for the Browns said when they took him. They said he's different than his dad. They said he was more like an introvert and he wasn't overly talkative in the meeting. So somebody's lying a little bit too, um, because they ultimately did take him. If he was who they were trying to paint him to be, he wouldn't have been drafted at all, right? He wouldn't have been drafted at all. So he can't be exactly. The truth is probably, I ain't even want to say somewhere in the middle, but maybe there's some truth to both sides, somewhat, but the truth can be manipulated and overemphasized, I would say, because the team that drafted him liked him. They said they liked when they talked to him. He was mature and everything. So somebody's lying, or somebody's stretching the truth just a little bit to me. In my opinion. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time. Peace.